Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5 and episode number 721 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Monday, August 25th, 2025, and it is a gorgeous day here at the Beaver Lodge. Let's try that again. Bright sun shining rather than bright sun shining. Bright sun shining. I can see it reflecting off the windows of the buildings around me, and a very, very beautiful, gorgeous blue sky today. Just some wisp of cloud from where I'm sitting, but it looks like it's going to be a lovely day here. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A, and not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly, but we did have an opportunity to spend some time with them this Saturday at the pubcast, and that always does my soul a lot of good, and hopefully it did yours too. For those of you who have tuned in, and for those of you who have not, especially if you tune in an audio cast, our pubcasts are available exclusively on our YouTube channel. So please go there and check it out. It's always a fun time. We try to show that even though we like politics, that we are well-rounded people with other interests, and that politics isn't the entirety of our identity. So it's an afternoon where we get together, have a couple beverages, munch a little bit, and just chat about this, that, and the other thing. And no religion, no politics. So it gives you a chance to get to know a different side of us, and us a different side of you too, because the chat is different when we're there for a pubcast. So if you haven't checked out one of them yet, I invite you to do so. They typically are a lot of fun. All right, let's see what else we have. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Mystery Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kids and cubs, I have to ask you, how is your mental health doing today? Okay. I hope it's going well. And for those of you who are having a bit of a rough day, as I mention often, hopefully some time in the chat with the DAMFAM, if you're here, will help boost your spirits. And if you are watching later on, and well, hopefully sometime with me will boost your spirits. My mental health is doing well, I have to say. I've been at the Ottawa Beaver Lodge all weekend long because it has been Pride here in Ottawa, and I don't always get to come to this one. And this is um, an important one for me because, of course, the first Pride I ever attended was one in Ottawa back in the days when I was just a wee little gaeling and just gaining my wings. And I've lived here for 40 years. So, I mean, you know, a lot of the people I know and grew up with and all that kind of stuff are here. So it's always nice to run into them at Pride and be able to catch up and, get news from people. So that was a lot of fun. And of course, this year I'm back at the Beaver Lodge. Of course, I had to miss Pride because, well, my foot was broken. So I couldn't actually go walk in it. And anyway, even if I could have walked in it, I wouldn't have been able to because that's the day we would have done our mental health walk again, had I been able to walk, which is why we had a reduced event this year. But again, hopefully next year we'll be back with whatever ambitions we had for it this year. Well, that and of course after the federal election was kind of pooped. And it came to organizing a full-fledged national event like we did the first year. But yeah, so this year was very nice to be able to attend some of the festivities. Um, it was going to be a very important Pride here in Ottawa because the parade route was changed from a regular one, and the parade route was going to go in front of Parliament buildings, which was the first time in a while that has been the case, and always important because it used to be Ottawa Pride, but recently, I'm not sure how many years ago now, but rebranded itself as Capital Pride, and the date at the end of August coincides with some events of historical importance for the Canadian gay community. So, and Pride did start as a protest. So, marching in front of Parliament Hill allows us to bring back a little bit of the protest element, to the parade, so that we don't forget it. And I was out there to watch the parade and caught some really interesting pictures and posted on my socials, live from Pride and some pictures. But when I was there, the parade had stalled. And well, that's not odd every now and then for a parade to stall and then it gets back. But it had stalled for a while. And so I wasn't sure what exactly was happening. And I moved away to go grab a little bit of a quick bite, and came back, and you know everything was gone. So I figured, okay, the parade had gone through, and the regular sort of traffic jam that sometimes happens at parades was over, and so I was uh, going to the end, about to walk to the end of the route to be able to catch it, and uh, didn't. So I thought I had to miss it, and I thought, wow, they got through that kind of fast because they were looking at when I was reading the articles, it seemed that the parade had a lot of entries. And yeah, it wasn't until I got home till I found out that the parade, for all intents and purposes, had been canceled because of another political protest that had taken place. So yeah, um, having to do, of course, with the issue that everybody would assume that that's the case. Uh, but yes, pro-Palestinian protesters decided that they were going to halt our parade and make sure that we could not have our day, so that we can make our voices heard to speak about our issues. As you know, kids and cubs, this seems to happen a lot to Pride parades for some reason. I'm not sure why this doesn't happen to St. Patrick's Day parades and Santa Claus Day parades and Caravana parades and all that kind of stuff. Seems to happen particularly to the Pride community's parade, that it gets held up or canceled or stopped, so that the issues of a very important issues, but issues of another community that is not ours can be heard instead. That our voice gets silenced and replaced with the voices of others. Um, as you know, that's something that annoys me because I believe that there's room for both. I um, I also believe that everybody should have at least one day that's theirs, where they get to speak for themselves, uninterrupted. Uh, this was ours. A lot of people turn around and say, "Well, you got a whole month." Yeah, there's a whole Pride Month technically in June because, well, many reasons. But um, while there's a Pride Month in June, not all their not all the cities have their Pride at the same time. They have one Pride Day. So yeah, we get one day to bring the issues that are ours and that are important to us. And yes, there are uh, some might say that the issues going on in Palestine are definitely way more important than ours. One could say that, yes, genocide is an absolutely terrible thing, and therefore, yes, any opportunity is good to speak up about it. There's no lie there. Um, I just don't see the reason for which we couldn't have both spoken on that day. Uh, if the day was not going to be allowed to be ours, we could have taken turns. We could have taken turns. Um, so yeah, uh, but that was not allowed to happen. So yeah, the group Queers for Palestine, Ottawa, halted to the parade yesterday with the permission of the Grand Marshal. The organization said in a press release issued Sunday afternoon, just as the parade was stopped, quote, "This is what a village looks like," protesters chanted from Parliament Hill, referencing the We Are a Village theme that Capital Pride was using for 2025. Q4P issued several demands for the organizers, Capital Pride including that the group hold a boycott, divestment, and sanctions halt and commit to an ongoing cultural and academic boycott of Israel. They also demanded Mayor Mark Sutcliffe and other elected officials apologize for the 2024 boycott of Capital Pride and called on them to, quote, "stand with us and all oppressed peoples, including Palestinians." Quote, "We are in the parade today to affirm very clearly that our pride is not for sale and that 2S LGBTQIA plus communities will not accept sponsors and elected officials dictating what we stand for, how we celebrate ourselves, and how we claim our space," the press release said. Um, some will note the irony that this is just happening the other way around in this particular case, since we both weren't allowed to speak and one oppressed people was silenced. Um, you know, I make the point often that even though we are worlds apart and the situations are different, um, there are people seeking to kill us too. Just again, saying, right? In 2024, Capital Pride issued a letter which condemned both, quote, "the acts of terrorism committed on October 7th and Israel's endless and brutal campaign in Gaza, which it said has caused the death of innocent Palestinians." The Jewish Federation of Ottawa called the statement anti-Semitic and said it would boycott Pride Parade in response. Other groups and individuals withdrew their support and sponsorship from some Pride Month events, including Mayor Sutcliffe. The parade went ahead regardless, but this year's statement was removed from Capital Pride's website. Capital Pride Executive Director Callie Metler told CBC the removal was part of a website update, but it still stood by its principles and values. However, the organization has faced a campaign by Q4P to restore the statement and recommit to supporting Palestinians. This year's parade route was supposed to take people up Elgin Street past Parliament Hill on Wellington Street and was planned to end on Kent Street, not far from the street festival on Bank. Drivers, well, then the last stuff was traffic stuff in there. The usual length of the parade route was halved in 2024 because there was not enough police officers to cover the full route. This year's route is roughly the same length as the shortened route from last year, though it will travel along different roads. Well, it was supposed to. Capital Pride told CBC in an email that they had been, quote, trying to get a route in front of Parliament Hill for a few years and could not until this year, but did not say why the planned route was shorter than parades held before 2024. So despite the parade's cancellation, the festival on Bank Street still went on, the community fair still went on, the tea dances and after show dances and the drag shows all went on. It was just the parade that was stopped. The festival did get to keep going. But yeah, it would be nice, really nice, if we could be allowed to have our day. We would like that. It's. I just don't. I don't know what to say. What else to say when it comes to this? I don't understand how groups that speak claim to speak for or that wish to speak to issues of oppressed peoples need to oppress each other. If we're supposed to be standing against oppression, can't we help each other out rather than silencing each other? Can't we share space as opposed to taking over someone else's space? A lot of people work very hard for an entire year to make this happen. Right? Yeah, I really don't know what to say. I mean, and the same thing happened with when it happened in Toronto for Black Lives Matter. You know, y- you feel bad sitting there and talking about but what about my issues? I mean, yes, uh, Black people were being shot in the streets by police officers. That's an absolutely terrible thing. Should stop. Absolutely, we should be giving our time and our attention to that. Genocide. Absolutely. Should stop. We should be giving our time to that. But a community's issues are very real for it as well. So, and a lot of people put a lot of work in doing advocacy for their own issues. So to just have it ripped away is and then have to sit there and smile. So, oh well, yes, it's fine. We understand. This will put these issues of vital concern to our community on the back burner for yet another year while more of us die. You know, it, it's a lot to ask a community to do and to just uh, smile and be gracious as it happens. So, yeah, um, not probably not as eloquent or as gracious as some would probably like me to be. Um, but yeah, I just don't understand. I don't understand why we have to um, climb all over each other and try to dominate each other. There's 24 hours in a day. There was room for both of us to speak. If it absolutely had to be the case that we couldn't have the day to ourselves. But to not have the day, not have our moment, I don't know, man. It just doesn't. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth just as this, and it also, like I said, puts me in a position of having to, speak for my community, uh, and say, our voice matters too, and that we should have one, um, while potentially looking like a jerk, right? Potentially looking like I'm selfish, potentially looking like all those other things. And it's like, it's not coming from a mean place. It's just coming from, we have issues that need to be addressed too. And if our issues keep on coming in second to other issues because there's something more important going on in the world, and one could argue that there's always something more important going on in the world than our particular issue, then our issues never get addressed, however. And that's not good for us. So the part of all of this that is like, please secure your own mask before helping others with theirs, uh, that's the part of it. If we're never allowed to reach for our own mask to put it on, um, not quite sure what resources some would expect that we would have left to be able to help others. Sometimes you have to be a little selfish. There are times you legitimately do have to put yourself first, because if you don't, you're in no position to help other people for the long run. So yeah, that part of it, not fun. But say, like I said, everybody dealt with that, and the day went on. On the street, I have to say, didn't hear too much grumbling about it. Heard more of it. Saw more grumbling online. Uh, Probably from people in my age demographic and older. Those of us who marched and walked and fought and protested and all that for all the stuff that we have now, uh, you know, that are there, um, you know, that have done our bit, and we're there on the sidelines, either marching or on the sides of the parade, watching and cheering for the next generation. Uh, that's taking their issues and running with them and making stuff happen, right? And, being there to offer support and guidance if it is needed, and a sense of history. Uh, but letting them run with the ball this time and encouraging them, right? So yeah, we a lot of that demographic tends to get um, upset when those things happen. So yes, a lot more chatter uh, online, again from my personal circle, uh, and not only gay people, but to allies as well, writing about it, just not understanding, right, why both, and arguments from the other side again. Well, we got the media attention, nobody's talking about this, we need to get the attention, so we succeeded. It's like, yeah, I understand, and I wouldn't say that nobody's talking about this. I mean, we're talking about it a lot. The solutions aren't coming as fast as some would like. Absolutely, I agree on that, but it's not like nobody's talking about it. And like I said, sometimes um, in these type of battles, you need to recognize when you have the opportunity to make more allies, because it's a long fight, right? Stopping capital pride does nothing really to stop what's going on over there. Uh, Now, again, it can get people to exert pressure, to do the divestment and all that type of stuff. Absolutely agree. That can happen. Um, but it doesn't really, that one action alone, right, it's not like everybody's going to wake up one day, oh my God, they held up capital pride. Gee, we really need to do something, right? That's not going to happen. Um, but if this is a long game, because then you want the most the greatest number of voices behind you going, yeah, what they said. I personally believe you're more likely to get that from a greater number, because if you let the allies that you need have their day, you accept their invitation, go into your space so that you can make your point, march in the parade, all that kind of stuff, have your banners, 'cause- but let other people make theirs too. Um, so yeah, the issue with Palestine as well is not a new one for the gay community as well. It's affected us for years in other situations as well. So there's other, like I said, this is not new with regard to prides. Either committees having difficulties or having to do um, uh, rejig the way that they do things, reprioritize certain things, and sometimes there's some, and listen, there are times where there are things that are fairly straightforward and simple to do that can be done, and those adjustments get made, and those are good things. But yeah, like I said, it's a weird situation. This feeling that you have to deny someone else their voice so that you can have yours, when we could all be working together. So uh, that's about all I have to say on that one. And said, it doesn't. It's not. It's not a great situation that we find ourselves in opposition, because as oppressed people, we don't want any other people to be oppressed either. So I get it, and particularly now with what we're seeing on TV. Just I mean, famine has been officially declared over there for all intents and purposes. Um, I think they've reported that at least 300 people have died of starvation and malnutrition already. So that's not a great situation in any way, shape, or form. And then the current offensive to try to take over Gaza City and displace people who already have been displaced several times, who have no place to go, and um, you know, not exactly a ton of food in their bellies for the journey. Um, it's not a good situation. It's one that we should be standing up and speaking up against. There's no doubt there. So, which also, again, makes sitting here and saying, "Yeah, but what about our community?" Uh, there's no way you can't come across as be. There's no way that you can say something like this and not have some segment, uh, think that you're a jerk. So I get it. I get it. It's just that um, I care about my people as much as some people care about that issue, and I just think it would be nice if we could find a way to actually support ourselves and support each other in pushing our issues forward rather than compete each other for airspace. And you know, being happy that you got media attention and thinking that just simply having gotten media attention means that you've won. It doesn't, we got to think beyond that. Getting media attention can put something on an agenda, but once you put something on an agenda, you got to do something with it. Once you get the public's attention, you got to do something with it. You got to have something else in the background other than yet another protest or another disruption, whatnot. You have to actually be able to take the ball and move it up a couple of yards and make some progress. I'm not sure, though attention was brought to the cause, and though it did get headlines, um, I'm not sure what this did to bring about any progress, solution, or to gain more allies. So, like I said, if it's attention at the expense of allies, then congratulations, mission accomplished. If it's bringing everyone along with you, or as many people along with you as you can, so that the next time you stand up, everybody else goes, yeah, me too, probably not as big a success with these types of tactics. Okay, moving on to other subjects. Not sure if they're more pleasant subjects, but they're certainly easier to discuss, at least where the morality component is concerned. First of all, there's a little bit of news about things related to the budget. Probably not a coincidence that news about the budget is being dropped already at this time, considering what happened on Friday. If you were paying attention, and you would have to have been living under a rock to not notice, the Prime Minister of Canada made an announcement that we were going to be rescinding some of our counter-tariffs on the United States. We'll get to that a little bit later here. But as a result, when that happens, well, then you get all the usual chorus of the belly down crowd, face down, ass up crowd, starting talking about elbow positioning all over again. Elbows up, elbows down. We don't know where they are anymore. Where did his elbows go? They seem to have mysteriously vanished. Right? Because a trade negotiation is something that's just very simple and straightforward and never hits any snags. Right? Never have to stand up for yourself at any point. Listen, it's like looking at each individual tree rather than the entire forest and all of that type of stuff. So anytime a move is made, it's like it's all related to elbows now. Which I guess when you come into this type of thing and start setting the narrative, going elbows up, at some point you're setting yourself up for this type of discourse. It's sad, however, that the elbows up it has become the go-to response, and we don't get much more. We don't get deeper meaning or significance from it. Um, you know, counter analysis, just like we need good analysis to explain things, if we're going to be taking positions against things, we also need some good and solid analysis. And framing everything is, you didn't shove your elbow right into someone's face at this one particular opportunity, therefore your elbows must be down. Ha ha, you suck at this. Is not deep analysis by any stretch of the imagination. So with the predictable chorus that came along to go along with that announcement, probably not a surprise that somewhere over the course of the weekend, the federal government mentioned, oh, by the way, yeah, budget's coming in October. Remember that? Let's talk about that. Throw a little, just to try to change the channel a little bit. So this is according to Stephanie Ha of CTV News. Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne says the federal government will table a budget, the first under Prime Minister Mark Carney, in October, describing it as a, quote, ambitious plan to Canadians amid U.S. tariffs and global economic uncertainty. Quote, this is rethinking Canada. Oops, sorry, there is some autoplay here picking up I hate that. I wish there was a way. Maybe you guys know, kids and cubs, if you haven't put it in the chat, to sort of disable autoplay. Because when I go to a news article, I go to read the news article, not to have a commercial start that I'm not interested in particular. But François-Philippe Champagne said, "This is rethinking Canada for the 21st century at a time where our neighbor and friend decides to have a very different trade policy," Champagne said in an interview. "That is a moment for us to do more for ourselves." Champagne launched consultations for the budget last July, and that will run till the end of August. The upcoming federal budget also comes at a time when Carney has faced questions over how he will reach his election promise to balance operational spending by 2028, despite recent spending pledges, including an additional $9.3 billion for defense this fiscal year to hit NATO's 2% of GDP target. Carney has also repeated pledges to spend less and invest more. In July, Champagne, along with Treasury Board President Safkat Ali, issued letters to cabinet ministers asking them to present plans by the end of August to find day-to-day operational savings. Ministers must find 7.5% savings for the 2026-27 fiscal year, which begins next April 1st, followed by 10% in 2027-2028 and 15% in 2028-2029. Again, there is nothing that has been said that says that the totality of what it is that these ministers will present will be cut, but whether or not this is like I said, a starting point for discussion, then they decide from there what will be cut, because some of the things they might decide in there. Well, yeah, while that may be cuttable, we might need that a little bit down the road, or this is too vital to cut. Right? You have a larger amount. If you ask for a larger amount than you're prepared to do at any given time, then chances are you might be able to make the exercise a little more painless. Quote, "The fact that we have a budget in October is helpful because by that time we have more certainty," Champagne told CTV News. "We are able to provide a better picture to Canadians, and I think what people want to have is that very rigorous approach to budgeting, and that's what we're going to propose." The spending review, an aim to find $25 billion in savings over 3 years, has prompted public service unions to voice concerns over potential job cuts. But the federal government has maintained it intends to reduce the size of the public service through attrition. During the federal election campaign, Carney also promised to cap and not cut the public service. The Conservatives had previously urged the Liberal government to present a budget before the House of Commons rose for the summer. Speaking to reporters at Parliament Hill on Friday, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre criticized, of course, Carney and his spending commitments. Quote, "Spending is up 8% under Mr. Carney, and it looks like the deficit will be twice the one that Trudeau left behind. Though we don't know because Mr. Carney, that genius banker, still hasn't introduced the budget," Poilievre said, adding that the Prime Minister is spending more and investing less. Okay. Number one on this, spending's up 8% under Mr. Carney. It's not up 8% under Mr. Carney. Last budget was Trudeau's budget. The spending that we're doing is the spending that was mandated under Prime Minister Trudeau. You can't just make Prime Minister Carney wear it. Okay. Number two, yes, absolutely. There are going to be bigger deficits. That was the whole point of making the distinction between operational spending and capital spending, because when it's all one number, then the Conservatives just look at the number and they say, "Oh my God, it's a deficit, it's terrible," and they don't stop to ask, what is it that we are buying with this money? Why is it that we are running a deficit? So, to bring it down to a small scale, if you were living in an apartment and you decide to buy a house, but you do not have the money to cover the full amount of the house, you engaged in deficitory spending because you bought a house and you didn't have enough money to pay for it all. Then what's that? But you bought a house. You bought an asset that appreciates. If you had taken the $400,000 you were going to buy on a house and decided to spend it on a super luxury vacation, that you don't get any residual uh, income or production boosting benefit from. Now, again, you might have a nice vacation and come back more productive after that. That's possible. But when you don't have that tangible appreciation in value, it's a different type of expense. So, because the conservatives always like to go for the short message and not really explain and don't do nuance, dividing the budget in this way makes it such that, if you can show that your operational spending is in balance, and yes, that your capital spending is in deficit, but you can turn around, yeah, but that's a pipeline. That's the pipeline you asked for. That's why that debt is there. You put the conservatives in a position down the road of saying, well, which of these projects of national importance under C5 would you suggest we do not go ahead with, sir? That we don't put a federal component financial participation in, so that we don't have. Which one? Tell us. Do you think that we can afford? Oh, we've got the pipeline approved now. Oh, it's more deficitory spending. So you don't want the revenue that's going to come from this pipeline afterwards, right? This puts them in that position. But you can see here again, Mark Carney, the genius banker, right? The unnecessary sarcasm and put downs. He is by any account acclaimed and renowned for his abilities. But you have a Pierre Poilievre reframing things like Mark Carney has gone around all this time, thinking, I am the genius banker. Everybody bow down to me. Just listen to what I will say and everything will be all right. I have all the answers. And it's like, no, that's not what he said. And you will see, or you've probably heard the quote from Pierre Poilievre that Mark Carney promised he would, quote, handle Trump, end quote. For those of you who understand how quotes work, right? Pierre Poilievre didn't say, Mark Carney said, quote, I promise I will handle Trump, end quote. He said, Mark Carney promised he would, open quote, handle Trump, close quote. He could have taken any sentence in which Mark Carney said the words handle Trump, pulled that out of the sentence, claimed that Mark Carney promised he would handle Trump. Mark Carney never promised he would handle Trump. Mark Carney promised us that he had the skill set and the experience that was required to get us through this situation in the best way possible. And the best way possible doesn't mean of all the ways that one can conceive the absolute best one, the best one that will be allowed in the circumstances. Because a trade negotiation involves at least two parties. And it's not like we're going to walk in the room and say, well, here's all the things that we want, give it to us. And then we walk out and we get that, say, hey, look, we've got to win. That's not how trade negotiations happen. But Pierre Poilievre is talking about them as if they kind of happen in that way. And also talking about them as if he, as a man with far fewer skills and experience and far less to offer, would somehow be able to make a better deal. I would go in there and negotiate from a position of strength, because and then Donald Trump would laugh in your face and then make you dance, right? You can't talk about this pretending that there's nothing else going on the other side that doesn't affect the moves that we do. But yeah, so Pierre is going to be looking to criticize the capital expense budgets, yeah, as being inflationary and deficitary spending. Um, they're going to look at a whole bunch of things that are provincial jurisdiction and blame the federal government for it. Say, yeah, this is Mark Carney's Ontario. It's like, well, it's also Doug Ford's Ontario, though, right? I mean, he controls the government and the budget with some pretty interesting purse strings as well, right? Um, so yeah, there's going to be a lot of this positioning from Pierre, making things that try to make things super simple and uh, and always mocking. Always mocking. This is not the first time that I've seen the sort of like genius bank or that type of term slipped in like this, and this is all to create this impression here that Mark Carney went into the last election. You know, thumbs and suspenders. It's like, who's got two thumbs and is going to handle Donald Trump and get us everything we want in the perfect dream world? Me, this guy, which has never happened at all. So yeah, I'm going to a little bit of drip, drip, drip news about the budget, uh, and hopefully kids and cubs. The progress on that will keep going well with the consultations coming to an end at some point this month. And then, of course, there will be the drafting process and whatever negotiation is going on uh, in cabinet and vice versa in terms of competing priorities to ensure that certain things get in the budget and others don't. And also, over the course of the weekend, the Prime Minister confirmed that which Minister Tim Hodgson said, and we reported on the last show that Hodgson was seemed to be very optimistic and hopeful that there would be some projects being announced very quickly, even though the project of national importance office is going to be set up in September. It seems that they will be ready to go through with some announcements rather quickly. And like I said, Mark Carney appeared to have confirmed that in some media availabilities over the course of the weekend as well. So we'll be looking forward to that. So we're going to have, I assume that we're going to start having more and more announcements coming together with the shorter gaps of time as we are getting closer to the opening of the next session of Parliament in probably close to 21 days, I think, 3 weeks from now is what it is. It opens September 15th. And then when that starts, like I said, if I was the government, I would be having a lot of these announcements already planned in the pipeline, right? Every second day or something like that, some type of new announcement, new investment, new deal, new thing closing, a new trip somewhere, a new talk with another leader, a new project being announced, that type of stuff to flood the zone with things that the government can point to as in we're getting some stuff accomplished and we're moving forward on things because Pierre Poilievre's narrative is going to be nothing's getting done, nothing's getting done. You picked a loser, you picked a lemon. And all this type of inserting comments like genius banker Mark Carney is all there. That's the build up, right, for the tear down to come. So you can see Pierre Poilievre putting his dominoes in place for what it is that he hopes will happen, which sadly enough means that he is hoping that Canada will fail. Because that's the only way that Pierre Poilievre gets to continue on that narrative as Mark Carney, the genius banker, not being able to get it done, over promising, said he could handle Trump, but obviously couldn't. Wow, what a failure. Vote for me instead. I haven't told you what it is that I will do. I just told you that I would be able to do it better. Take a chance on me. Oh, man. So, moving on, what has caused all this consternation about elbows is that on Friday, according to Marco Vigliotti of iPolitics, the Prime Minister made the announcement that Canada is dropping some retaliatory tariffs on U.S. imports. Starting on September 1st, Canada would remove its levies on U.S. goods that are compliant with the Canada-United States-Mexico Agreement. The U.S. has exempted CUSMA-compliant goods from most of its tariffs on Canada, which were increased to 35% earlier this month. Despite the increase, Carney said the average U.S. tariff rate on Canadian goods is 5.6%, the lowest among all its trading partners. More than 85% of Canada-U.S. trade is tariff-free, he said. Now, again, as we noted on the show before, this 5.6% is if you take all of the trade with Canada, the CUSMA compliant, and the trade on steel and aluminum that's being tariffed at ridiculously high amounts, put it all together, spread it over the totality of the trade, and that's 5.6, which, yes, indeed, doesn't seem so bad, but the places where we have very, very high tariffs are in some very, very specific sectors that are extremely crucial to the Canadian economy and can do a lot of damage. So that 5.6 number, while absolutely true, does mask the fact that there are certain segments of the economy that are being particularly hard hit at way more than 5.6%. On the other side of that ledger, however, Canada is not unique in that aspect because the tariffs on steel and aluminium, for example, are global tariffs. They apply to every country pretty much in the world. Canada disproportionately affected given the amount of steel and aluminium we produce and send over to the United States. That's for sure, no doubt there. But it's not like the Europeans or anybody else have gotten a better deal on those, and it's not like those tariffs have been reduced for them either. Right. So while the trade, anything that's CUSMA compliant and that type of trade with other nations, and the base tariff is different from nation to nation to nation. The sectoral tariffs, the ones that the 232 tariffs based on national security and the softwood lumber stuff, which is basically countervailing duties and that type of stuff. Those were not affected because nobody got any, didn't get those addressed in any way, shape, or form. So, like I said, you got to balance it out. It does make the overall number look not so bad, but that kind of masks that there are certain key sectors that are being hit hard. But then again, we are not being put at a disadvantage as opposed to other nations in those sectoral tariffs because everybody pretty much has the same one. So if we're looking at it again as framing it as in competitive advantage with regard to other global nations, and particularly near peer nations, it is true. It is absolutely true that right now we do have the best of all the bad deals. Let's put it that way. The average tariff rate on all international partners is closer to 16%. So if you do the same exercise, even out the totality of tariffs over the size of the overall amount of trade, it's 16% on average for all international partners. Some are lower, some are higher than that, and we come in at 5.6. Quote, as we work to address outstanding trade issues with the United States, it is important we do everything we can to preserve this unique advantage for Canadian workers and their families, Carney told reporters in Ottawa. Doing so will require both building on a soon-to-be revised CUSMA and developing a new form of trade and security partnership. Carney faced questions on how removing tariffs were consistent with his message from the spring election campaign, urging Canadians to keep their elbows up in the face of U.S. antagonism. So, I just want to go over here this last little bit. Okay, yeah, no, I don't have to add anything there. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I had all my notes in there. Canada also dropped its digital services tax in late June as a way to salvage trade talks with the U.S. ahead of the American August 1st deadline. No deal was reached by that time, and tariffs on non-CUSMA goods from Canada were increased to 35%. Unifor, Canada's largest private sector union, said removing retaliatory tariffs, quote, undermines Canadian workers and weakens Canada's bargaining position in an escalating trade war. Meanwhile, the Montreal Economic Institute, a conservative think tank, applauded the decision, saying complete elimination of tariffs and liberalization of trade with the whole world should be Ottawa's approach. And this is where Pierre gets in a little bit of a sticky situation, because when we are making decisions that conservative bodies are asking for, but then Pierre criticizes them as being elbows down, he's creating a problem with certain core constituencies of his own. Right? So Pierre is deciding that the trade-off uh, of trying to make Carney look like a fool is worth it, and worth the damage to his reputation and to his relationships with those organizations. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre accused Carney of abandoning his central campaign promise, suggesting he either misread Trump administration or, quote, knowingly spread falsehoods to get elected. That's rich. That's rich. These types of accusations, kits and cubs, only work if the person making the accusation isn't a more fervent practitioner of the behavior they are criticizing. If we're talking about knowingly spreading falsehoods to get elected, that's Pierre's fucking brand. It's like you are very ill placed to be making that accusation of other people, sir. And I use the term loosely. Quote, it has been yet another capitulation and climb down by Mark Carney. His elbows have mysteriously gone missing, he said, adding that although Canada may have a lower tariff rate than other countries, it has, quote, outsized impact because of its dependency on the U.S. Carney suggested that things have changed since the winter. Using another hockey analogy, he said sometimes dropping the gloves early in the game helps set the tone, but it might not be the best option at this stage in talks. Quote, when you're late in the game, dropping the gloves and taking the extra penalty might not be the best thing to do. Carney said CUSMA will start consultations next month on the mandated review of CUSMA in 2026. He also promised his government would soon announce new comprehensive industrial strategy that protects Canadian jobs, boosts Canadian competitiveness, buys Canadian goods, and diversifies Canadian exports. Now, here's the thing here when we're talking about elbows, kits and cubs. There seems to be certain people on the down on your elbows crowd, or belly down, or face down, ass up, whichever one you want, that seem to believe that elbows up means that you are skating around the rink, elbows up, 100% of the time, always looking for every opportunity you can to shove it in someone's face. Well, number one, if your elbows are always up, at some point somebody's going to stick you in the ribs. Right? The elbows have to go up and down during a game. You don't want to let people know when the elbow is coming sometimes. You also don't stick your elbow in somebody's face when the ref is looking right at you. Right? So, elbows up to this crowd. They've decided to take this, and it says, like, anytime Trump does or says something, we take an advantage of it to go out and goad him, provoke him, make him mad. If that is what Pierre Poilievre is espousing that we should do, there's no way he can claim that he would make a better deal than Carney did, or that Carney can. Number one, no way, you can't do that, right? If Pierre Poilievre wouldn't be an elbows up 100% of the time kind of person, then I'm not sure why he's complaining that we would put elbows at mid-range for a while. The thing with our trade here is that the United States, first of all, the trade war is illegal, right? The sectoral tariffs, they're using laws to claim that there's a national security issue to get around those. But all the other trade is CUSMA compliant. We opened with counter tariffs. So, as Carney is saying, first period, skating around the ice, some elbows up, sending a message. Right? The initial counter tariffs, which were imposed by Prime Minister Trudeau, were things that we put on that would give us some leverage, some things to take back later if the negotiations were going well. So we also have to realize that when this started, our goal was to attempt to get to a comprehensive agreement very, very quickly so that we could provide the business community with the stability and predictability that it so needs and desires. Well, somebody decided that that was not going to be an option. So the way we play the game has got to change. It's not going to be a quick 5-10 minute match. We're going to play all three periods here, and we might even go into several overtimes. So we have to have more to our game than going into the corners with the elbows up. And then Mark Carney made some references to, sometimes you need to stick handle and make sure you get the puck in the net as well. You got to do other things. Now, one of the things that Canada was legitimately worried about, because we're coming to a review of CUSMA, which is only supposed to be a review, and Minister Anita Anand did an interview, I think it is, with Christiane Amanpour's show not too long ago, speaking about that and saying we like to call it a review because it was supposed to be a review of the changes that were made last time only, to see if there's any adjustments that we needed to make to them, after which that would be the agreement for the next however number of years, a significant number of years. There's a lot of thinking that when comes time for this review, Trump will want to renegotiate the whole thing all over again. But at the moment, until such time as that takes place, there is hits and cubs. The exceptions that the United States have been granting for CUSMA compliant trade. I'm sorry, there's just some very, very loud noise. I'm not sure if you can hear it, and it's extremely distracting and going on above me, and I'm having trouble focusing. I'm sorry, hits and cubs. And we want that exemption to remain in place. And it's now no longer going to be just a short little scrimmage. It's going to be a long match. So it's probably not a good idea to add additional provocation to the United States by tariffing goods that they are not tariffing, and to keep our counter tariffs on goods in the sectoral section where they are affecting us. So, for example, tariffs on steel and aluminium, right? When the United States applies the tariffs, they are paying them. When we put on counter tariffs, those are taxes, import taxes that we are paying, right? And the goal was always to put some tariffs on that inflict maximum damage over there with minimum impact here. So we applied those first tariffs. We're building a little bit of a fund that we have some funds that we can use stuff from to help support industries and workers, and all that is very good. But for example, for steel and aluminium, for example, the counter tariffs in those particular cases do have another purpose. Yes, it does raise the cost over here, but it makes it such that it is not as attractive for Canadian companies to import US steel and aluminium. And that a lot of the a lot of the steel and aluminium that we produce here and gets diverted for use in Canadian products. So yes, even though it does, wow, that is really loud. Even though it really does increase the amount, I'm sorry, I really am having trouble focusing. Wow. Okay. Um, it sounds like I'm not sure if you can hear it, but it sounds like a very, very loud washer and dryer coming from the top. And I normally don't hear a thing here from anywhere, so this must be something really major that they are doing. Um, sorry, I'm getting a little thrown off. I apologize. So yes, those counter tariffs, kids and cubs. Um, when we have to make sure that they are serving us at this point. So wanting to maintain the fact that we have a CUSMA exemption for the foreseeable future for those exceptions to remain during the review process rather than being pulled at that point is pretty critical. And therefore, removing our counter tariffs on products that the United States is not tariffing is not a dumb idea. Pretty good idea, actually. I have no problem with that. Um, I would like to maybe see counter tariffs on steel and aluminium being raised to the 50% that the United States has on us in order to show that we are serious when we say that we can raise counter tariffs on our own, because we've promised and threatened, not promised, we've threatened that this is something that we do have in our tool bag, but we haven't used yet since Mark Carney has become prime minister in terms of raising additional tariffs. But that's there, and that would further encourage our industry in that case to make the transition required so that we can produce more of the products that we use here in Canada rather than having to import them from the United States, because right now I think the United States is tariffing us at 50%, but we're tariffing them at 25. And there's been some request from the steel and aluminium industry itself for us to raise those counter tariffs, and we haven't done that yet either. There's allegedly a reason for that, and we'll get into that. But getting back to the article by Mr. Vigliotti. Despite the announcement, Canada's retaliatory tariffs on steel, aluminium, and cars will remain in place. However, Canadian tariffs on steel and aluminium are only half the rate of Americans, as I just mentioned. The U.S. also recently added 407 products to the list of goods subject to tariffs, including cutlery, propane tanks, heaters, air conditioners, and agricultural equipment like tractors. Catherine Cobden, president and CEO of the Canadian Steel Producers Association, said earlier this week Ottawa should respond with a 50% retaliatory tariff on all U.S. steel, including, quote, immediately ending the ill-advised April reprieve on American steel used in manufacturing and processing. Carney says it's something that we would look at in the future. Quote, we're looking at our industry both in terms of how we support the industry's liquidity for today, helping their workers find Canadian diversifying markets, but of course trade policy, including with the United States, is part of that. But we're engaged in discussions with the United States about exactly those sectors. Carney's decision appears to contradict advice from Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who has repeatedly pressed Ottawa to fight back against the Trump administration. In a statement, Ford said he spoke with Carney on Friday to, quote, stress the need for an agreement with the United States that provides relief to our tariff-impacted sectors, including steel, auto, forestry, and copper. If the federal government can't achieve that, they need to hit back hard against U.S. tariffs and provide additional supports for the workers and businesses in these sectors, he said, adding that the feds need to ensure that Canadian mega projects use Ontario steel. The Liberals last month announced new import tariffs aimed at supporting domestic steel producers. However, the Americans were exempted. The government also vowed to change procurement processes to require companies contracting with the federal government to source steel from Canadian companies. And those additional ones were done so that other nations that produce them don't use Canada as a dumping grounds uh, for their product, and also again to encourage Canadian uh, builders and manufacturers to use Canadian steel in their products. So yeah, imposing the higher tariffs on the steel from other nations, but not from the United States. In this specific instance, is with a goal to create a situation in which um, Canadian steel producers to give time for the market to transition, but for Canadian steel producers to buy Canadian steel and start incorporating that into their projects rather than going from cheaper steel that may be coming in from other nations. So we had to act on two fronts in this particular case. Let's see, what else do we have here? Carney has repeatedly said Canada can help insulate itself from the impact of U.S. tariffs by bolstering its own economy, pointing to legislation the Liberals passed in spring that removed federal internal trade barriers and created a new process to fast-track approvals for major projects. The Liberals are expected to release the list of projects that qualify for the fast-track process sometime this fall. So there you go, kits and cups. Some extra news with regard to that. So yeah, the elbows up, elbows down, and the chortling is very, very easy rhetoric that can be used here. It's very simple. It's very reductionist. Again, getting you to bypass the rational thought center to go to the emotion. Oh my God, I can't believe that we're lowering these tariffs after everything the United States has done to us. Like, how terrible! What a terrible thing! So yeah, you know, but you have to sit back and think in the overall situation, given that this is now going to be a protracted trade war that's going to last a good long time. What do we need to change about what it is that we are doing? Can we just go in with the first initial plan and not change anything? And that's another irony of Pierre Poilievre on this one. Pierre Poilievre being upset that things are not changing fast enough for his liking, even though we are changing our strategy as we play the game because the game is changing. And criticism about change coming from the man who became famous, if not infamous, for his inability to pivot. So once again, Pierre Poilievre is showing us that he would have had one strategy going in from the beginning, and that he would have just kept on doing the same thing over and over again if it wasn't working and would not, or if the game changed, and would not pivot and would not change in any way, shape, or form, make any adjustments. Being strong doesn't mean making a decision that's good for that particular time in which you make it, and then holding on to it for the entire time the situation exists, should the situation either become more complexified or persistent. Right? You have to change stuff. You have to show that you're nimble. If things are changing on the ground, you got to be able to show you're nimble. And this, like, again, the man who just cannot pivot, criticizing other people, was funny on this. And then also that also goes for his rhetoric with, Carney's worse than Trudeau. Carney's worse than Trudeau. Everything's getting worse. Yeah, okay. If you want to run with that, you want to run with that, and go ahead. But you're the one who doesn't like change. Like, Pierre is running from the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party is naturally adverse to change, but he ran on change. Mark Carney also ran on change. And Canadians liked the change that Mark Carney was proposing better than the change that Pierre was proposing. So, so you can't be a person who's incapable of change criticizing people for their ability to change, or not, or the guy from the party that's adverse to change criticizing other people because things aren't changing fast enough. It's not a natural fit. But Pierre's going to try to keep on having it both ways. So yeah, we'll see what comes out of that. But we've got the trade stuff, got the budget stuff. Those two things are sort of working together to broaden the economic discussion. And once again, Pierre is not looking like he can hold his own compared to Carney when it comes to trade negotiations. Because as we're mentioning, Carney seems to have the ability to recognize when the game changes and to change strategy. And he's not afraid to pull on some levers and even maybe take a little bit of a PR hit, whereas Pierre is determined to be strong and wrong, pretty much, and never deviating. It's like, you said elbows up, it has to be elbows up 100% of the time, or else you're failing us. So, and that's not it's not how it works in real life. Now, our Prime Minister has also been doing other things, kits and cubs. Over the course of the weekend, you may have heard that he found himself in Ukraine, in Kyiv, of all places, in time for Ukraine Independence Day. He was invited as a special guest to celebrate 34 years of independence from the Soviet Union. The trip was made under strict news blackout conditions and tight security, and of course, you know why? Because Kyiv is being bombarded at regular intervals. It is a frequent target of attacks. But this is not all that he is doing, Kits and Cubs, because this stop in Kyiv is part of a broader European trip, European mission for the Prime Minister that is aimed at forming deeper economic and security ties with European allies. So with regard to Ukraine, specifically, as we mentioned, he was invited there as a special guest. And obviously that he was there and nobody had any idea is a testament to the leak-proofness of the Prime Minister's office at the moment. So good job there. While there, the Prime Minister said that Ukrainians should have no doubt about Canada's commitment to their country. And this was his first trip to the war-torn nation. So Carney gave a speech in the Sofia Square in front of the Ukrainian president himself. He said, "Mr. President, dear friends, my message today is simple. Canada will always stand in solidarity with Ukraine. We will always be with you, so your many sacrifices lead to peace, security, and prosperity that all Ukrainians, that all peoples deserve." He said Ukraine's cause of freedom, democracy, and sovereignty is Canada's cause. And, we have one of the largest, we have the largest Ukrainian diaspora outside of Ukraine. So there's no surprise that that would be the case. Mark Carney and Defense Minister David McGuinty were greeted Sunday morning at the Kyiv main train station by Canada's ambassador to Ukraine, Natalka Kmoch. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Ukrainian government officials, including Ambassador Designate for Ukraine to Canada, Andriy Plakochnyuk. The Prime Minister was invited as a special guest of Zelensky for the state holiday marking 34 years since Ukraine declared its independence from the Soviet Union in 1991. Carney noted that Canada was the first Western nation to recognize Ukrainian independence under former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. In his speech, Carney said his own upbringing reflected Ukraine and its diaspora in Canada. Quote, "I grew up on the Canadian prairies where my horizon looked like your flag, where my classmates bore your names and their parents and grandparents spoke your language," he said. The Ukrainian people are part of Canada's story, a story whose best chapters are yet to be written. Zelensky addressed the crowd ahead of Carney, saying in Ukrainian that was an honor to have the Prime Minister for his first official visit to Ukraine. After his speech, Carney joined Zelensky and the president's wife, Oleana Zelenska, to lay flowers at the Wall of Remembrance to the fallen. Carney also announced more details of the $2 billion aid package Canada pledged at the G7 summit in Kananaskis, Alberta, earlier this year. More than $1 billion of that support will come in the form of drones, ammunition, and armored vehicles, he said. Another $680 million will fund a package of military equipment prioritized by NATO to be delivered to Ukraine next month. Canada will also fund the joint production of defense materials such as advanced drones from Canadian suppliers. Carney's pledge includes tens of millions of dollars in funding for emergency medical and shelter relief and support to protect against digital attacks and other threats to Ukrainian democracy. Carney said in French that Ukraine is at a critical moment of the war and that the support of the international community must intensify. His visit comes a week after U.S. President Donald Trump tried to move the peace process along, first hosting Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on August 15th, and then Zelensky and other European leaders at the White House a few days later. Carney said during his speech that he applauds the leadership of the transformative U.S. President Donald Trump in creating the possibilities for peace. Despite those talks, Moscow unleashed a heavy barrage of strikes on Ukraine earlier this week and continues to insist it must be involved in any security guarantees for Ukraine. Zelensky has rejected any such involvement. Carney, in his speech, blamed Putin for the terror facing Ukrainians. Quote, "But Putin can be stopped. Russia's economy is weakening, he is becoming more isolated, and our alliance is hardening. It's growing more effective, more determined, more united," Carney said. Canadian government official briefing reporters before the trip said Russia is making slow progress in its campaign to retake Ukrainian soil. Canadian intelligence suggests Russia is losing 1,000 soldiers per day in the conflict, while Ukraine is estimated to be losing about 500 soldiers a day, the official said. Russia has been recruiting soldiers from other countries such as North Korea to sustain its war effort, the official said. That has caused a lack of alignment in training in the Russian ranks, leading to a loss of morale, giving Ukraine an advantage on that front. Canada has been part of talks for more than 2 years seeking to help secure any sort of peace deal in Ukraine. Those talks morphed last fall into a coalition of the willing, a group of nations seeking to contribute to maintaining peace in Ukraine if a ceasefire is reached. It includes most European nations as well as Canada, Japan, and Australia. When that peace comes, Canada will be there, Carney said in his speech. We will be there with you to promote peace, security, and prosperity for Ukraine once the killing stops. Experts say Canada has a vested interest in allying with Ukraine and other Western nations in guarding against an expansionist Russia, particularly in Arctic territories. The Canadian official said it's important within the coalition to keep momentum building instead of having steps back, as in the past. Many obstacles still exist to securing a peace deal, including determining conditions for a ceasefire and the fate of Russian-occupied territories and the Donbass. Moscow illegally annexed Crimea, and its forces hold parts of 4 other regions outside the Donbass, and all Russia holds about 1/5 of Ukraine. Ukraine is also seeking security guarantees against any future Russian incursion. Security guarantees will be largely dependent on the United States. Trump said in recent days that there will be no U.S. troops on the ground in Ukraine, but suggested air presence and intelligence support could be part of any security guarantees in an eventual peace deal. There are Canadian soldiers in Europe as part of Operation Unifier, a mission to train Ukrainian soldiers launched after Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. Canada has not ruled out putting boots on the ground in Ukraine, the official said. Canada's support so far for the conflict includes $22 billion in financial support for Ukraine, largely in the form of loans, according to Ottawa's tallies. A separate independent estimate from the Kiel Group pegs this amount closer to $19.7 billion. Canada has an outsized role in humanitarian initiatives such as work to resettle Ukrainian children abducted by Russia, maintaining maternal health services, and the detection and removal of landmines. So, yes, Prime Minister in Ukraine for that and to make those announcements, which is very good. Just looking here in my notes, kids and cubs, because there was more details on certain of the things there with regard to the $2 billion that we had committed at the Kananaskis G7. So that was indeed, uh, as we mentioned, for badly needed supplies like ammunition, armored vehicles, also money for drones, which it looks like we are going to be uh, doing together in some sort of a joint defense uh, initiative in terms of getting them built, which is a good situation here. Looking to see if there's anything a little more in depth also from Craig Lord here of the Canadian Press. So the package uh, includes $835 million to procure urgently needed supplies for Ukraine's war against Russia, including vehicles, arms, and medical equipment. Roughly $680 million will support purchases from a list of items prioritized by NATO, including U.S. equipment, munitions, and air defense capabilities. Canada will also contribute $220 million to buy drone, counter-drone, and electronic warfare capabilities as part of a joint venture between Ukraine and Canadian industry. Remaining military funding will go to bolster Ukrainian defense capabilities and sourcing ammunition and explosives. The federal government says Canada's support so far in the conflict includes $22 billion in financial support for Ukraine, largely in the form of loans, as I mentioned earlier here. There was also $31 million in humanitarian aid and other support for the war-torn nation's reconstruction in coming years that was announced. These include projects to help counter disinformation and to foster citizen trust in Ukraine's democracy, in part by strengthening its digital resilience. Canada also on Sunday signed a customs and mutual assistance agreement for the Canada Border Services Agency to share information with Ukraine. Ottawa said the agreement will help Canada coordinate more effectively with Ukraine to probe customs violations, smuggling, and other trade-related crimes. So that's a little more in depth on what some of the money is going there for. And with regard to the security guarantees, something that did make news is the Prime Minister seeming to indicate an openness for Canada to actually have boots on the ground. According to Abigail Biman of CTV, Canada is not excluding the possibility of sending troops to Ukraine in the event it reaches a ceasefire with Russia, a senior Canadian government official said ahead of Independence Day celebrations in Kyiv, where Prime Minister Mark Carney was to be recognized as the guest of honor on Sunday. Quote, "We are not excluding boots on the ground," the official told reporters during a secure background briefing ahead of the Prime Minister's trip. For security reasons, the details of the trip were not allowed to be released until Carney arrived in Ukraine. The official said discussions by the Coalition of the Willing, the group of 30 countries looking to support a path forward for Ukraine. Sorry, again, the noise. In the war with Russia, about what future security guarantees for Ukraine could look like in the event of a ceasefire are ongoing, but their form has yet to be determined. U.S. President Donald Trump has said his country will not send troops to Ukraine as part of a security guarantee. Carney wasn't quite as specific, speaking in Ottawa Friday, saying, quote, "Canada has the potential to have an important role in future security guarantees if and when fighting between Ukraine and Russia stops. Quote, any security guarantee starts with a robust Ukrainian army. That means weapons, that means training, that means viability," Carney said. "It means that there has to be security on the land, in the air, and in the sea," he added, noting there's potential for members of the coalition to provide support in all of those areas. Carney said Canada's chief of the defense staff is involved in talks with a smaller working group within the broader 30-nation coalition, working on potential models for security guarantees. He described the situation as, quote, "fluid and delicate." During the pre-trip briefing, officials also provided context for Carney's attendance as the guest of honor for the Independence Day events in Kyiv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky invited Carney in their very first phone call after Carney became prime minister. Quote, "We are the most important supporter outside Europe," said a second official, also noting the large Ukrainian diaspora in Canada. Officials described Carney's presence in Kyiv as, quote, "very symbolic." And then, of course, the prime minister will be making other stops during his trip. Today, He is in Poland again for discussions about deepening economic and defense ties with the nation. He will be meeting, according to his itinerary, the first official item on his agenda is a one-on-one chat with his Polish counterpart, Donald Tusk, during which the two leaders are expected to move forward on a strategic partnership between Canada and Poland, focusing on trade, defense, and energy, according to the Canadian press. After that meeting wraps up, Prime Minister Carney will deliver a brief statement to media before heading into a second sit-down, this time with newly installed Polish President Karol Nawrocki, who was inaugurated earlier this month after securing the position during a second-round voting in June. Later this afternoon, Carney will take part in a roundtable discussion with business leaders from the energy industry before making his way to Berlin this evening. And then after his stop in Berlin, he will also stop in Riga, Latvia, I believe, where we have one of those training missions going on. If I'm not mistaken, I think it is one related specifically to Ukraine as well, because I know that we've been helping a little bit in the UK as well. But according to Davis Legree of iPolitics here, Prime Minister's trip to Germany this week will also include stops in Poland and Latvia, as the Canadian government seeks to intensify bilateral discussions related to critical minerals and defense. Carney's upcoming visit to Germany was revealed by the German government earlier this week, but a technical briefing for reporters confirmed the Prime Minister will also meet with political and business leaders in the Polish and Latvian capitals. The trip comes as Carney continues to look to strengthen international partnerships, particularly with European countries, amid U.S. President Donald Trump's ongoing trade war with Canada. In June, Carney participated in the Canada-EU Leaders Summit in Belgium, which produced a new transatlantic partnership on security and defense. Earlier this year, various European political officials floated the possibility of Canada joining the European Union in the near future, but more recently, Canada's Special Envoy to Europe, Stéphane Dion, ruled out the idea of joining the bloc. Next week's official visits will be Carney's first time traveling to Germany, Poland, and Latvia since becoming Prime Minister. Accompanied by Defense Minister David McGuinty, Carney will meet with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk and President Karol Nawrocki on Monday in Warsaw, where government officials said the discussions will largely focus on enhancing collaboration on energy, aerospace, and defense. Poland has one of Europe's fastest-growing economies and shares an extensive land border with Ukraine, which continues to face large-scale attacks following Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion in 2022. Poland has been one of the European nations to partner with Canada on Operation Unifier, which has helped to train approximately 45,000 Ukrainian soldiers over the past decade. Canada has also around 150 Canadian Armed Forces members currently deployed to Poland, some of whom are expected to meet with Carney on Monday. During the visit, the two countries are also expected to sign an agreement related to an upcoming defense industry exhibition known as MSPO, which is held in Poland every year, while officials also teased that Carney will make an announcement broadly related to defense spending at some point during the trip, though it won't involve specific contacts or companies. The Canadian delegation will then depart for Germany, where Carney will meet with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz before holding a joint media availability on Tuesday. It's picking up on discussions that we have had since we first met in Rome in April and subsequently at the G7 about how we can deepen our economic and security partnership with Germany, he said, Carney, at an unrelated press conference on Friday. Oh my God. There's a broad range of areas from critical minerals to energy to defense and security where we are intensifying our discussions with Germany. Carney and Merz are expected to announce a new declaration that would deepen the two countries' collaboration on critical mineral supply chains. The Canadian delegation, which will be joined by Energy Minister Tim Hodgson in Germany, is also expected to meet with senior business leaders, including CEOs of major German firms, for discussions that government officials said will be heavily focused on critical minerals. Finally, the Prime Minister will head to Riga, where he will be met by Latvian Prime Minister Evika Selina, with whom the Prime Minister is scheduled to discuss various defense issues before meeting with additional CAF personnel. Okay, kids and cubs, I am going to have to cut this episode short. I do not know if you guys can hear the noise, but it is absolutely loud. And I've got noise coming from on top of me right now, and I've got noise coming up from in front of me because there's construction going on and logs clanging. And while this is happening, they are literally outside my door doing something with a vacuum as well. So I've got three different sets of noises going on. I am sure you have to be able to hear something because I've actually had to raise my voice while I'm doing this to try to get over the sound of it. I don't think if you were able to hear everything that's going on, it has not been a pleasant experience for you. It has not been a pleasant experience for me. And I'm hoping that Mr. Grizzly will have a way to sort of clean some of that up in the audio file because this is just ridiculous. I tried my best to ignore it and keep going for you, but I'm finding it very difficult to concentrate, and I actually have a bit of a headache developing. So I unfortunately will have to cut this one short, kids and cubs. I apologize profusely for not being able to get through it, kids and cubs. All right. So that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us, kids and cubs. If you would like to be able to follow the podcast version of the show, actually, you know what, kids and cubs, this is so hard. I'm not going to do the extra like I normally do today. So I'm just going to put the QR codes up. Oh, thank God it stopped for a couple of seconds. So yes, our pod page, there it is. Scan the QR code there, podpage.com/the true north eager beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. Click subscribe when we have something fresh off the podcast bandwidth feed. It comes directly to your favorite podcast feed, and you don't have to go looking for it. If you'd like to help us in other ways, kids and cubs, make your way down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page. That QR code that just appeared will bring you there. Kids Cassie and Elaine are beckoning you, and please click with our buttons like, share, and subscribe. It helps us with the algorithm when you do that. And kids and cubs, if you'd like to help us in other ways, a donation to our coffee page would be really appreciated. Oh my God. Uh, if you could, coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. We definitely appreciate your financial contributions to encourage us to do more, especially if our content resonates with you. And if you are buying Canadian, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address where you can send a direct bank transfer. Your transaction remains fully Canadian. No CE Tech Bros will take a cut from it and then use it as tribute to give to Donald Trump. And we get 100% of your donation. So we appreciate that. So thank you for all your help there. Because democracy is something that you do forever. Canadian.ca is the website you go to if you are in Alberta to make a pledge, financial, or to sign the petition, to sign up to be a canvasser, to volunteer in any other ways. And please look up to see where their pop-up sites are and show up and sign that so that you can get the question on the ballot for the Citizen Initiative to ask whether or not Alberta should remain in Canada. Words of wisdom, kids and cubs. Sometimes life's just not going to cooperate with you. That's the thing for the show. So sometimes it's best to do. All you can do is do the best you can for the time you can, and then at some point maybe just have to cut your losses. So yeah, if this one was an audio hellscape, I very much apologize. I have no idea what this is going to sound like. I shudder to listen to it back when we're done. Yeah. All right. It seems to have stopped for now. Hopefully they are done for the rest of the day, but I've already committed to stopping the show, so I'm going to continue with the extra and then not to try to fit more stuff in. So yes, that's the democracy, something that we do point. So kids and cubs could be a tough world out there. Please be kind to and gentle with yourself. One of the things I had forgotten to mention earlier, I said I was going to get back to, and then I got distracted, is one of the reasons as well justifying um, the reduction of the counter tariffs is that Donald Trump some time ago signed an executive order confirming the United States commitment to the CUSMA deal as it stands. So, with that piece of documentation as well, Canada thought it was a good idea to go ahead and Donald Trump uh, said something to the effect that they want to be good to Canada. So let's hope that materializes, and still has nothing but praise for Mark Carney himself, calling him a good guy and saying that he likes him. So that's already a win there in that sense, because the president seems to work on feels and vibes and that type of stuff. So the relationship with Mark Carney is very good, and it seems that there was a promise for these talks to intensify. There was even some rumors that we might be looking potentially at some type of reduction in the aluminum and steel tariffs coming in relatively short order. Don't know if that's the case, but there's been a little bit of word on the tweet that that might be happening. It seems that Canada's position here on these trades is uh, the strategy is shifting in the sense that um, the goal now is to protect these CUSMA exemptions for the rounds that are going to come next, the review portion. So to not goad and antagonize on that while trying to get better deals than the rest of the world has on the sectoral tariffs specifically. Not much hope that we'll be able to get those down to zero, but if we could get steel and aluminum down from 50 to something lower than the rest of the world is paying, there could be some benefits for our industry in that capacity as well. And everybody's using the fact that our industries are so incredibly intertwined and interconnected as the basis to say, well, yes, there's the rest of the world, but Canada is special because we have this. So maybe we should, you want to apply those tariffs to the rest of the world, that's fine, but maybe we should work on reducing those sectoral tariffs for ourselves. So we'll see where that goes, but keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. Everybody suggesting that if there is anything that happens to manifest from the U.S. side, that's probably where it would show up eventually, would be in some type of reduction in the tariffs that is being applied to us specifically with regard to steel and aluminum. We'll see. We'll see. If that happens, though, it would be definitely something that the Prime Minister can point to shut Pierre up a little bit. All right. That's all I got for you, kits and cubs. So now we're at the audience participation part of the show. If you would, kits and cubs, please say, Mr. Beaver, would you please cue the cock? In 1, 2, 3. Ah, I hear you. Okay. Here you go.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
All right, kids and cubs, a little news of Canadians who make us proud. Before we go, Rebecca Marino did win her third round qualification match to make the main draw of the US Open. Unfortunately, as has been the case with Canada, the draw gods are not at all kind to us. And they put her in the draw in the first round against Leila Annie Fernandez. So was Canada against Canada in the first round, and Rebecca Marino did lose that match to Leila Annie Fernandez, who advances to the second round. Today on the courts, I believe we have Gabrielle Diallo playing for the men and Victoria Mboko playing for the women. Victoria Mboko got a bit of an interesting draw again in the first round, having to play another Grand Slam champion, Barbara Krejcikova, who is a Wimbledon and a French Open singles champion, also many times doubles champion. Her ranking slipped a little bit over the course of the year, I think, with injuries and all that kind of stuff. So she's 64th in the world at the moment, but you can't let the ranking um, trick you. So she could be a dangerous floater that could cause some problems. But Victoria Mboko has been playing so well that there's no reason to suspect it should stop now. But you never know; surprise can happen. But tougher first round draw for her. Same thing, Leila Annie Fernandez. If she makes it to the third round, she's been placed in the quarter of the draw where she will face the number one on the world, Arina Sabalenka. So again, pretty terrible draw for the Canadians. But all in all, we have 5 players in the singles draw in the U.S. Open: Felix Auger-Aliassime, Denis Shapovalov, Gabriel Diallo, Leila Annie Fernandez, and Victoria Mboko, who are seeded players, which is the most ever in Canadian history. And then if you add Gabriela Dabrowski in doubles as well, we have another one there. So kids and cubs, keep your fingers crossed for some really good tennis over the next couple of weeks. It's the last Grand Slam of the season, so hopefully our Canadians can go out with quite a bang and get some extra ranking points to help solidify their positions as the year comes to a close in tennis. There'll be more tennis for the rest of the year in October, November, December, but a lot of the big players start having a reduced schedule after the U.S. Open, especially if they've got enough ranking points to make sure that they will be seeded for the Australian Open at the beginning of the next year. Then some people try to use the time for a little more recovery and a little less play if you're at the top ranks. And for everyone else, it gives them an opportunity to maybe get some windfall points when some of the best players aren't necessarily in the draws. So, interesting situation for everyone. We'll keep our eyes and ears peeled for that. And also, a shout out to our friend Devin Haru, who will be getting married at some point. I think it is this week. So, lots of love to you and your boo, and hope that it's a beautiful wedding. We will be cheering for you and raising a glass in your honor here at the Beaver Lodge. Okay, kids and cubs, that's all I have for you. Amour et bisous. You all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow from the regular Beaver Lodge, where hopefully there won't be sound warfare going on at the same time that we are trying to do the show. I hope it wasn't too unbearable. All right, I am off, everyone. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.